All right. Why do we feel like people outside of the Avalanche world think that the Colorado Avalanche aren't legitimate contenders this year? Let's talk about that in a new episode of Locked On Avalanche. Coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. Joining me, as always, Mr. Zach Pearson. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. If you want to get in on the conversation, then join our subtext. Link is in the show notes below. When you do, chat with Zach and I one-on-one. Get your opinion, everything Avalanche related. Share it on this very podcast. We're going to get to a lot of listener questions today, sir. So I think this is your first mailbag episode.
Yes, it is.
All right. So people are going to be writing in, and we're going to answer as many as we can. Usually this lasts a few days, but we have a really good question from one of our favorites over on Subtext, Miss Madam Battleaxe, about sci-fi. I'll just leave that out there. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But I want to jump in here, like right off the top, sir, because you're getting closer to the season starting, and a lot of people are wanting to put not yet, but soon people are going to, we'll do it. People are going to put out like predictions and things like that. Yeah. And there's one clip going around from like the Empty Netters podcast. And I got a couple questions here when I threw out a mailbag, saying throw in your ask us anything. I had one question saying, like, how do you think the Avs stack up against Dallas this year? Fair question. There was another one about assuming Martin Necas and Gabe Landeskog pop off and the Wood duo is strong. Are we top tier contenders? If you haven't seen that Empty Netters clip, they did a thing where they're like tier listing contenders.
Yeah.
And they have like this back and forth about where to put the Avalanche and how, they kind of throw a dig at Avalanche Nation as a whole and just say something to the effect of like, we're living like our heads are still in the clouds from that Stanley Cup victory. And we still think we're like S tier, which I don't think is true. I think Avalanche fans are have come back down to earth from that. But they put them in the B tier. Like not even in the A tier. And then you have questions, which are legitimate questions. I'm not trying to say like they're not legitimate questions, but are you like me and getting a vibe, like kind of like reading the tea leaves and getting the pulse of like just hockey media and world outside of Avalanche Nation, where they want to say that the Avalanche are contenders because of, Makar and McKinnon and that stuff, but they're hesitant to really want to pick them as a pick this year.
I think I feel I get that from some of the shows like the Empty Netters one, like you're talking about that you brought up here. And I watched that as well. I think shows like that aren't the actual like national media, you're not having, I don't think TSN's putting out stuff like that, Sportsnet, NHL, none of those outlets are saying things like the Avs are not really that high end of contender. I think national media outlets are still saying Avs are top end contention. But I do feel a lot of like people sitting here talking into a mic like we do are starting outside of Avalanche circles are starting to kind of cool a lot more on the Avs, especially after 3 early losses post Stanley Cup victory. So I do get that kind of impression. Personally, I say I love it. Bring it all the way on, because the instant Nathan McKinnon went up there and said, in 7 years I haven't won blank, the Avs went and did the thing. They won the cup that year. And so I think a little bit of that chip on the shoulder, I hope that kind of gains a little bit of traction just to give those guys that little bit of motivation.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a thinking out there of it's like proof is in the pudding for you got the Stanley Cup, that's good, but what have you done since then? I think that's all legit, but it also doesn't mean they can't do it. Like I get a feeling that sometimes it's just I don't want to call it maybe like, maybe it is recency bias. It's just like, well, you've lost, first round, you went to the second round once since then, and you lost that round. It hasn't been good. I'm not trying to like put lipstick on a pig here, but it also like doesn't mean that it's impossible to achieve. And for me, I just want this season to get started, because
Yes.
not because like you're just looking forward to another hockey season, sure, but I'm pretty confident that so many questions that people have around the Avalanche get answered, and get answered in a positive way. The answers around, or the questions around like Martin Necas, the questions around Brock Nelson, the questions around like maybe there's still some people out there about goaltending questions. You know what I mean? Like, and all fair game, all
Yeah.
fair game. I think that's the difference right now with the Avalanche and say like Dallas. I think Dallas, you're not getting as many. Every single team in this league, there's going to be questions, and we did a burning questions episode last week. Every single team is going to have those. I think maybe there's more there for the Avs than some other teams and contending teams. But I think it may be because there's so many, the Avs will be able to answer a lot of those. Maybe not. Some of them maybe won't get it. I don't know which ones those are that don't get answered. Maybe it's the Gabe Landeskog one. Who the heck knows?
Yeah.
But I just want this season to get started. So, in a sense, people shut up. And I mean that in the most loving way. Because right now it is just all the questions, the answers geared towards the negative. The answers geared towards they can't do it. Necas isn't going to fit. Nelson isn't going to fit. Nelson was an overpay. The goaltending won't hold up. They're still going to regret the Miko. Like, it's all geared towards the negative, and we live in a negative society, so that doesn't surprise me at all. But I just want like this season to begin, so the Avalanche can start putting proof out there in the standings, in the points, in their play, in stats, and kind of put to bed some of these questions.
I think they do answer a lot of them, and I think most of them are answered in a positive light. I can absolutely see. I mean, we spent 3 years post-Cup wondering about the 2C position, with admittedly a couple of failed experiments in that spot. And so again, now you've got Brock Nelson in that 2C spot. It kind of is still a question mark, right? We haven't seen a full season of it. We don't know. Goaltending has absolutely been suspect post-Cup run. And I think that the Lumberyard did enough last year to ease those concerns, at least in my opinion. But I think it's, to your point, absolutely legitimate to still question that, right? Is the goaltending going to hold up? I think all of those things are absolutely accurate, but I'm 100% with you, man. Like, I just need the puck to drop for game one and let the Avs go out there and prove that they are still the team that we know they are.
And I think they can be. I like to say this team is not a contender. So what is that? Is that missing the playoffs? Do you really think this team is going to miss the playoffs? I would be shocked if that. I mean, anything is possible, right? We saw the New York Rangers go from President's Trophy to missing the playoffs. So yeah, it's possible. And it's a different scenario, trust me. But I think we all kind of acknowledge that this is a solid team, and it doesn't seem like they're getting that recognition, and it's all based on what's happened in the past few years anyway. And I get that. That is fair, but I'm going to give them the opportunity to answer those questions, because these guys are professionals. And, a lot of people want to go to the after they lost, and the Nathan McKinnon comments of, I don't know what we do.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh no, Avalanche don't know what to do. Phone it in. Like, no, like that's raw emotion right after the dude's season ended. Yeah. Give him a little bit of latitude here, right? And I think the Avalanche went out and figured out some things. And I think they're a strong team. I think they're a good, solid team. Are they head and shoulders above everybody else in the league? No, they're not that team going into the season where they're the odds-on favorite, but they are still up there. And we all love to say how, all you got to do is get into the playoffs and anything is possible. Why isn't that true for this Avalanche team anymore? It's always true for Tampa Bay. It's always true for Florida, for Vegas. But for some reason, you just get the vibe that it's not true for the Avalanche. It's just they're just going to go through the motions. They'll make the playoffs and then just phone it in. I don't buy it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I definitely agree 100% with what you're saying there. They're not gonna phone it in. And then the question that you brought up that kind of matches with this contender as well that we got from the mailbag. How do the Avs stack up against Dallas? You've been eliminated by him 2 years in a row in the playoffs. For sure, that's a legitimate question right there as well. I think they've addressed enough pieces. I think the Avs have built up a little bit of depth. I'm not saying that, oh man, mark it down now. If we meet Dallas in the playoffs, it's a win. That's going to be a 7-game series again. It's going to be a battle. But I think the Avs do stack up. And in my mind, to be a contender, it is a weird one, right? Because sometimes teams squeak into the playoffs that have no business necessarily being there. I think you have to make it past the second round to legitimately be a contender. And even though they haven't done it in a couple of years, the Avs are more than capable of making it past that second round. So definitely. Contender, yes, the Avs, top tier. Would I take them as the number one pick? It's a surefire thing. Take them right now to win the cup. Not until they ink that deal with Sidney Crosby, but until then, they're a solid contention team. Absolutely.
All right. We got a couple of questions on these extensions, potential extensions coming for the Avs. I've talked about this, but I'm always willing to talk about contracts and extensions. And I want to get your take on some of these guys, particularly Cale Makar and Martin Necas. So let's get our first break in. When we come back, we'll continue with questions from the fan base, and we'll do that after this. Let's hear from FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet, and if that thing wins, $300 in bonus bets goes into your account right away. So visit FanDuel, get started, put some scratch on the Broncos. Feeling good about this week.
Yeah.
All right, sir. So we did get questions on extensions. So like I said, going into the break, namely Martin Necas and Cale Makar. Who would you like to answer first? Which one do you want to tackle here first?
The one that I feel more confident in taking a stab at what it's going to be is Cale Makar. So let's go there.
Fire away.
I'm thinking that's an 8-year deal because there's no reason that you don't pen him to an 8-year deal with the capability of doing so. Right. And I think that one's going to hit in that 15.5 to 16 million a year range. I've read a handful of things. It would be about the same percentage of the cap that Nathan McKinnon's contract was when he signed his. Right. And so I think that kind of keeps it, because there was a lot of talk last year about the internal cap, and that's why we couldn't get a Mikko deal done. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that that's like, I'm sure there's some thought behind that, but with the cap increasing, I think it ends up being a percentage, and that's how that gets pitched, and that's why I'm thinking in that 15 to 16 million range, because if I'm not mistaken, the cap goes up to 110 next year.
A little bit more than, well, so the year that his new deal would kick in,
or that's what I meant,
goes up to 113, 114.
Okay.
So a little bit more, right? And that's the key, is percentage. It's weird to kind of like look at it that way, but the percentage will dictate what the number is. Yeah. It's almost like they don't go in and negotiate the number, they negotiate the percentage. Mm-hmm. And just to bring it back for maybe people who don't like follow it that closely, the most one player can make towards his team's salary cap is 20% for any given year. Cannot go higher than that. That's the most that they can make. And I was throwing this number out for a little while, and people are like, you're crazy, that it was never going to go that high. I think some people are still living in the mindset of the COVID flat cap era. Mm-hmm. And we have to get ourselves out of that, people. We are now in the era where the cap goes up every single year. So when you throw out a number, like I'm going to do, which is 17.025 to be insanely specific, it's not that crazy. Because two things. One, it's, you're hearing, this is how I answered it on Instagram. You are hearing that the Wild and Kaprizov are close, and he's going to be about 16 million a year.
Yeah.
Connor McDavid, who knows where that thing's going? I don't think he's going anywhere for right now. Could be interesting that he might only do a 2, 3, or 4 year deal. I can't imagine do a 2-year deal. Could he do a 3 or 4 year deal? Sure. So he will be in that range. And for him, not to go too much on a tangent, but it's going to be like, will he recognize, like, I can't take 20%? That just hamstrings my team. I can't do that. I already made a ton of money. If I really want to win a cup, let me take a little bit of a haircut here and bring some players in. I don't get the impression, and we've never got the impression, that Cale Makar is a greedy human being. Look at the contract he's got now, right?
Yeah.
And when he signed that, we were like, wow, that's pretty good. That's a nice steal. So fast forward to when his contract becomes year one. Like I said, it's like one third on Puckpedia. They have it at 113.5. I've heard it could be an even 114, but I did the 113.5, and 15% of that is 17.025.
Okay.
I think that's where he's going to be. I don't think he's going to go looking for the 20%. That's just not, I feel like, in his DNA. I feel like, hey, the guy that plays on his partner, his defensive partner, took less money to stay here in Devon Taves, to stay here and build a good team here. So I'm not saying because he did it, Cale will. I'm just saying, like, I feel like they are kind of like-minded when it comes to contract negotiations. So that's where I'm at with Cale. I think he gets like 17, and that, because the cap keeps going up, 15% of the cap for that year, it's 15% of the cap. Right. And then when cap keeps going up, that becomes less than 15. It looks even better. And yes, 8 years, lock in the 8 years, because that's the last year that you can do it. Mm-hmm. And they will absolutely want him to be in that Avs sweater for 8 more years, 100% on that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to your point too, the 8 year lock it up, even if it looks high to start, I feel like when McKinnon first inked that $12.6 million, people were like, that's a lot to pay there. Like, this is huge. But then the cap comes up, and now all of a sudden people are looking at that contract going, wow, the Avs got themselves a good spot.
And that one comes into play because, they signed that, and they were still in that flat cap era. Mm-hmm. And only going up like $1 million. So it was a little bit of a struggle for that year, but they had a lot of guys signed, and that did soak up a lot of that cap. But now you're a few years past that, and the last couple of years of that contract's going to look like
peanuts.
Bargain. Yeah. It already is. It already really is. Switch over to Marty Necas, because he's the one that can sign an extension now. He's in Colorado. He's back at camp, so he's with the team. I don't know if that means you'll get more contracts. Sometimes it does. They got to be, they don't have to be. They can negotiate with the agent, obviously. But is this something where we could hear it now before the season starts, or could be, when the season picks up? And what do you think his number could be?
I still think that he gets signed around American Thanksgiving. I think towards the middle to end of November is when that extension gets signed, barring like something crazy happening. Mm-hmm. And this is a complete shot in the dark, just because I legitimately have no idea what that number is going to end up being. I'm saying about 8. And term?
That's okay. Yep. Term's going to be an interesting. I think term is going to be an interesting one for Martin Necas.
I think it's going to be shorter. I think it's only going to be probably like a 2 or 3.
You think so?
If it stays around that. Now, if the Avs offer him a little bit, I don't know, man. And this is why contracts are so difficult for me, because I don't know how well the team believes in him yet. Okay. And I think that's going to have to be the beginning of the season to really see how that plays out, right? And
they could.
Just don't know.
So how old is he? He's 26. So when that contract's up, so that's his year 27 contract, and that's their first unrestricted deals. That's when they cash in, because that's their first unrestricted contract. They can sign it for max contract. And because he's at that age, I think he's going to want to go for, get as much as he can for as long as he can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I stand on the term. He's going to want, if he's happy here, he's going to want an 8-year contract. I don't know if the Avs are going to want that. I feel like they're going to settle in at like 5. I think they give him a 5-year deal. Wouldn't surprise me if they go up to 6. It wouldn't surprise me if they give him an 8-year. I was surprised when they gave Van the Schieskin an 8-year deal, right? But number-wise, Martin Necas is getting $10 million, people, a year. He is, and I think a lot of that has to do with, again, the cap going up. That plays a role in so much. And I genuinely feel like if the Avs come in at 8, he's not signing anything. He knows he can go on the market and get at least 10 because of this cap. And I'll just throw this number out there because I feel like the Avalanche maybe overpaid by $500,000 for Brock Nelson. I would have given him 7. They gave him 7.5. I think they're going to overpay for Necas by $500,000, and I would give him 10. So I think they're going to give him 10.5. I think they give 5 or 6 years, 10.5, and there you go.
I guess with the cap going up, that does make sense to push that 10 million mark. I really, though, through his whole career, I don't know. He's shown so much of a high ceiling.
Right.
And then kind of not always hit that potential as much as he can. And I don't know how much that hurts him in the value, but there's got to be a team out there, if the Avs aren't willing to go to that mark, that will absolutely swoop in and say, we'll take it.
There absolutely will be. And I think the Avalanche, you're right about the ceiling for him is like through the roof. And, you've seen glimpses of what he can do. You saw it with Carolina. You definitely saw it in the limited time so far with the Avalanche. But I think the Avs feel like we'll get that out of him. We'll pull all of that potential out of him. That is a risk. It's a risk. I grant you that. But I think the Avs are confident in his style of play matching with the Avs style of play and who he's going to be with on a line, and they'll take that risk. And if it doesn't work, we'll deal with that down the road. But I think that's where the Avalanche sit with him.
And that makes sense. And like I said, I do think that they go like maybe, if you could lock him up for, if you really believe in him and he is going to play up to his potential, then I think that's one that you want to lock that down for as long as you can, as soon as you can.
Yeah.
10 seems like a tough pill to swallow right now, but I also think maybe in 4 years we look back at it as like, wow, what a steal that is.
Yeah.
So
we'll see how it goes. I know there's a lot of people yelling at me right now. Like the 10 million range for a while has been like if you cross that, like you better perform. And I think they give him the chance. I think they give him the opportunity.
See, and I figured people would be, pounding the table saying 8 million is way too much of an overpay, just because of how angry people are at Necas for, quote, disappearing in the playoffs. And he didn't have a great run, but so I'm sure for 10, they're definitely yelling at you.
Oh, absolutely. 8. I mean, if he accepted 8, oh my God, I would do that yesterday.
I'd do an 8x8 in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, easy. So, all right, let's get our last break in here. Madam Battleaxe, she has some good questions here that we're going to finish up the show with. So let's get our last break in, come back, we'll do that. All right, over on Subtext, one of our favorites, Madam Battleaxe. She always sends in multiple questions and ends with a fun one. So I'm gonna ask all her questions here and end with that fun one. So that's a good one. But our first question is a very good one. Do you think Bednar should use Wedgwood more this season? Take it.
I think you've got a solid 1A, 1B rotation there, potential, but I think that the split between Blackwood and Wedgwood was excellent. I could see Wedgie going in for a couple more games here and there, but I really think Mackenzie Blackwood is going to be your best bet for the most wins, the most points, and you're just going to want to keep playing him as often as you can. I I personally don't think I would change that up too much. I think I would keep with about the split that you tried to keep with last year, assuming health.
I agree with you. Not to, I don't want to force everything on Blackwood, but I think, you ride your horse
Hmm.
for as long as you can. And he's going to, hockey season's a long season. So everybody is going to have ups and downs, including your goalies. So it's nice to know that if Blackwood hits like a funk, you can put Wedgwood in there for multiple games if you need to. I think that might happen at some point during the season, but you always go back to Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah.
If, I wouldn't change up the split too much, but I would maybe like pace it a little bit differently. Maybe Wedgwood plays a little bit, maybe like in the middle of the season, you play him a little bit more. Like you start out of the gates with Blackwood, get him acclimated, get him, hot. And then, incorporate Wedgwood a little bit more. And maybe like, I don't want to say even it out, but level it out to some extent, like in the middle of the season. And then you kind of end it with Blackwood because that's your horse going into the postseason, right? You want him.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I don't change it up too much, but I think the Avs love knowing that they have a very solid backup right now, and they can call on him whenever they need to, whether it's
Yeah.
just for normal rest for your A1 guy, or if he needs a couple days off just because more pucks are going by him for a stretch of games than you want.
Yep.
Then you're okay with that too. So I'm in agreement more or less with you. I wouldn't change it up too much.
Yeah, exactly.
But is a few less games the worst thing in the world? No.
No.
For Blackwood, no. I think that's okay. That's not the worst.
Absolutely would be fine.
She also asked, do you think they should bring back all the small things, the Blink-182 era? She says, my thoughts are yes, for the sake of the fandom. I'm in the no camp here, Zach. I don't know where you stand with this, but I like things when you look back at an era and say like this is what we did during that time period. And the Blink-182, all the small things, like that was during like the cup run. And that now I just feel like that holds more meaning now than if they just continued it year after year after year. And then it kind of loses its value after a little while.
Absolutely. That's 100% where I stand with that. Is I loved that. I listened to all the small things way too many times that summer. You got Mark Hoppus coming out with the first game for the banner raising. You got all of the things that could possibly happen around that. And so now it's just like a mythical kind of era.
Right.
And I think to rehash that doesn't cheapen it, but it sounds like you're just trying too much to play on nostalgia to me. And
100%.
I just don't like it. Now, break it out in some games like, hey, we just clinched the playoffs and we're up by 3 in the third with 2 minutes left.
Right.
Let's blast it. Let's have some fun with it every now and then. And I think it needs to stay in the rotation, but to a much, much lower extent. I don't think that needs to be the same thing that it was. It was so cool. It was so fun. I don't think you're ever going to recapture that magic. I think just let it retire and hold on to that memory forever.
100% agree with you, and like bring it back in like big moments. Like whether it's a playoff game and a game 7 or something, and you're up with like 30 seconds to go. You're up by 3. The game's in the back. Play it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you can bring it out situationally, and then it just brings everything back and just makes it more memorable in that moment. Like you said, with the nostalgia factor. And on top of that, come up with something new.
Yeah.
Come up with something new for this team and this era's team. So I'm with you on that. But you still look back of fond memories of Blink-182, and because that was great. That was great. That was a lot of fun. And finally, she always wraps one up with nothing hockey related whatsoever. And she asks, are we Star Trek or Spaceballs. I love that. Those are the two that should be up there because everybody says Star Trek or Star Wars. And if you listen to this podcast, you know I am Star Wars. I've never watched a single thing Star Trek in my life, believe it or not. Never watched a single thing.
They did the new movies. I saw it in theaters. That's the only thing I've ever seen.
They looked good. I have nothing against Star Trek, and they looked like they were fun movies, but I've never watched a second of it. So for me, this is an easy answer. That's Spaceballs all the way.
Oh yeah, may the Schwartz be with you. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I mean, I think was it like over the summer?
Yeah,
I think they're coming out with a sequel finally.
They
right?
are. You got Mel Brooks in Spaceballs, the sweater for the announcement video of it. Everything about it. Yep, can't wait. I mean, just sucks that you won't have John Candy, but otherwise, I can't wait for that.
Did you see? There's a documentary on John Candy coming out.
Yes,
I think it's going to be on Amazon Prime. I love John Candy. Love it.
Oh yeah.
The Great Outdoors is a movie that I just whenever it's on, I don't care if I missed 5 minutes of it or there's 10 minutes left in the movie. I finished watching them. I absolutely love that movie. It's just like the quintessential, like not cheaply made, but just like comedy from like the 90s or late 80s. That was just, to me, I just grew up on that stuff. So but yeah, like Spaceballs was to me, being a kid watching that and just like stupid humor, I think set the tone for what I find funny throughout the rest of my life. Because some people will watch that and be like, this is dumb. And I completely understand that. But when I think when that came out, what year did that initially come out in?
Oh my gosh.
That was, I was less than 10 years old, I think, when that thing came out.
1987.
So I was 6. I was 6 when that came out.
I had
funniest movie of my life when you weren't even a thought yet. But funniest movie of my life when that came out. So yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for Spaceballs.
I still crack up to this day watching that movie. 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Pizza the Hut is just disgusting. So. All right. So that is going to wrap it up for today, everybody. So thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. It's always appreciated. We have more questions that we will get to tomorrow. And anything else that happens in Avalanche Nation. We're waiting for these jerseys that I feel like are becoming a myth at some point at this point, but we'll see. If it happens, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But for that one, make sure to tune into that one. But for this one, thank you for making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. For Mr. Zach Pearson, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow, where you will have made it through another 24 hours where Sidney Crosby is that much closer to being with the Colorado Avalanche.